Hello, and welcome to Birdeye Live, the show dedicated to the digital transformation of local businesses everywhere. Join me, Justin Meredith, your host and digital marketing evangelist here at Birdeye. And as we learn from industry experts about the how and the why for taking your business online and claiming the most valuable real estate on the internet, that first page of Google. Also, we are here right now live. So if you have any questions about online reputation management, your business's online presence, or Google reviews, be sure to send a question in the comments and we'll answer it live. Now, I'm honored today to be joined by Birdeye's very own Rebecca Sprynczynatyk. Welcome to the show, Rebecca. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm happy it's almost Friday. We're nearing the end of the week. So, as you might be aware, we're in the middle of our Reviews to Revenue Masterclass series. And this is a 4-part series that we've been doing over the past few months that deep dives into the ins and outs of reputation management. And we're showing businesses how to take control and improve their online reputation. We're also discussing how to leverage your reputation to increase revenue, because that's really what matters, and how to build a reputation management strategy from the ground up, and also how to master Google reviews. And this next Tuesday on October 18th, the masterclass is back for part 3. And this one is dubbed Reputation Management for Multi-Location Businesses. And in this webinar, I'll be joined by the Director of Marketing of Sev Laser Aesthetics. His name is George Gregorian, and George is awesome, super knowledgeable. He's been in the marketing space, the digital marketing space, for a long time, and he and Sev Laser has brought in nearly 15,000 online reviews across its 27 locations. And so, when I think of a person who can talk to reputation management for a multi-location business, George is the first person who comes to mind, because he and his team have been able to absolutely kill it over there. And so George will be giving us his insight as to how he's able to manage all of the data for 27 different locations and 15,000 reviews, and how he's able to manage that, but also continue to grow and maintain that online reputation that they've built, which is one of the strongest in its industry. So be sure to click the link in the caption to register for that webinar. It's going to be an awesome discussion. I'm really excited for it, and it's going to be a good time. So Rebecca, in our last live stream, I had Stephen Munch, who's a guy here from Birdeye, and he just talked to us about the value of an online reputation. And he was saying that businesses must make it a priority to generate new reviews and to keep themselves competitive. Because you can get a few reviews for a week or a month, and that's great. But doing it day in and day out is really how you drive that value of your online reputation. But what if we're dealing with 10 locations or 100 or even 1,000? I imagine trying to focus on different locations and their online presence or their online reputation can be pretty complicated, especially with more people involved and all that kind of thing, all those things. So my first question for you, Rebecca, is what are the challenges that come with managing the online reputation of multiple locations versus just one single location?
Sure. That's a great question. And, Steve Munch is a really smart guy. He was absolutely spot on about the value of an online reputation. But yes, implementing those recommendations across multiple locations can be really challenging. What we find is that most organizations focus on managing their brand at a corporate level. But the reality is, if you want to rank at the top of local search for each of your individual locations, your reputation needs to be optimized for every single location. If you've got one location that for some reason is falling a little bit behind or not delivering on those customer experience expectations, it doesn't matter what your corporate reputation is. You're not going to, that location isn't going to show up at the top of Google search. Or if you do and you've got subpar reviews, you're not going to be selected by the people that are searching in that area. So it's really important that you optimize your reputation for every single location. And that can be a lot of work if you're using a manual process. If you're manually trying to generate reviews, monitor all of the responses, amplify the great feedback that you're getting, try to analyze those insights to improve your services, that's a lot if you've got 10 locations or 100 or 500 locations. Especially if on the feedback side, if you've got a really high volume, you could very easily be overlooking some critical feedback from a specific location that needs help. And that's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of things that can get lost in the fray when you're receiving so many different reviews or different websites and managing all those different locations. Just keeping track of everything can be really difficult.
Absolutely. And one of the other things we see is that um, people might have multiple employees that are reaching out to respond to that feedback. And if there isn't brand standards in place or common templates that are shared, you can have a very inconsistent voice in
Mhm.
that style of response. And that can certainly undermine your brand as well. So it's really important to have a very consistent, methodical process for how you respond to online feedback. And this is something we've learned after working with 90,000 local businesses and brands. We've really analyzed a lot of the best practices, and um, I think the number one thing we would recommend to improve your online reputation and scale it for every single location is to have an automated process.
Mhm.
Um, this process will help you generate reviews at scale so that you're getting coverage for every single location. It will ensure that you're monitoring all of the feedback that comes in from those locations. It'll ensure that you've got little shortcuts to respond, auto responses, templates that'll create some consistency in your voice. And then it'll also give you the tools you need to take those reviews and use them as resources to generate more leads and grow
Mhm.
your sales.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. And I think you hit the nail right on the head when it comes to having more locations, having that consistency becomes so much more challenging. Especially like you said, across your brand voice, whether you're responding to reviews or even requesting them, making sure that everything is consistent. And it's also, it's a question of, well, who's going to be running this? Is it going to be the one person on the corporate level, or do we want to have people at each location manage this? And if that's the case, how do we keep things consistent? There's a lot of different variability and just a sheer volume of data that you have to manage when it comes to managing multiple locations. And I think automation really kind of allows you to have that kind of consistency. In part two of the series, we discussed the four pillars of reputation management. And one of those pillars is review marketing, which you just touched on. And that's taking the positive reviews of your business and actually using them to promote your brand, basically turning your customers into advocates. Can you talk about how businesses can do that and how would they use an online review as marketing material? Maybe
absolutely.
examples or something like that.
Yeah, this one's especially exciting for me, very near and dear to my heart. So the first thing to understand is that people are influenced by reviews. It's really important. It matters. And so there was a study from Northwestern that showed that as you display reviews for your products, conversion rates improve. Actually, they escalate rapidly. And so, if you have a product that doesn't have a review versus a product that has 5-star reviews, the chance of someone buying the product with 5-star reviews is 270% greater. So, the proof is right there that
Yeah.
reviews matter. And so the question is, how do you get those in front of people to influence them when they are actively researching your brand? So the first thing you should do is make sure that those reviews are showing up on your website. It's a great way to have social proof, and there are widgets that you can use to pull them in automatically. But that's really important. Um,
Mhm.
Another place that is absolutely essential is social media. So after Google, social media is the number 2 place, or I should say, it's the top place they go after Google to research a brand when they're in a purchase
Mhm.
cycle. So they are using it to assess your reputation, to see what kind of comments you're getting. So social should absolutely be a place where you are amplifying your positive reviews.
Mhm.
And studies also show that user generated content like that, a review or a testimonial, is so much more engaging and interesting than corporate content
Yeah.
will ever be. Um, so people love reading about other people's experiences. When you get positive reviews, distribute them across your social channels.
Mhm. And I think that, and this goes back to a common theme that we've touched on in previous webinars and live streams, and we talk about it all the time because it's so important. It establishes trust. People trust other customers. a brand can tell me anything that they want and I'll take it with a
Mhm.
grain of salt. But if I talk to a real verified customer, or a friend is referring something to me, I care about that, what they're saying, so much more. Even if they're saying the same thing that the brand is, I think it's a psychology thing. It just kind of sticks in your brain. You kind of trust it more. And
Absolutely.
using that, the positive testimonials of customers really carries a lot of weight. And so using that on your website, social media, can be so impactful. And it's in other ways too. Posting your reviews, or at least the really kind of detailed ones that really provide solid information about the customer's experience with your business, that's also good for SEO. That's fresh content that Google gets to crawl over when they're looking at your business or your website and determining where to rank you in a search result. And so
Absolutely.
all of that stuff is valuable. And I think that's just a great way. It's one thing to get reviews, and it's one thing to get a positive review and a good star rating. But when you can take that next step and actually use that to build your brand even further, more than just when people are looking, but you can actually put it in front of people, that's when you really start to take strides in your online reputation.
Absolutely. There's one other channel I didn't mention, and this is a really big one. For any business that is spending money on Google Ads, which would be the vast majority of local businesses, if you have a strong online reputation, meaning you've got a rating that's higher than 3.5 stars, and
Mhm.
it's verified with over 100 reviews in the past year, Google will allow you to activate something called Google Google Seller Ratings, and what that means is the ad that you place on Google will be appended at the bottom with your reputation score and the number of people that have reviewed you.
Oh, wow.
And if there's a theme associated with it, like let's say you have a really great reputation because you have a great return policy, or you just have amazing customer service, or you're very responsive, they might add that as well as a descriptor for why you have such a strong online reputation. Google has done an analysis, and they show that when your ad has the Google seller rating appended at the bottom, your click through rate can increase by up to 17%. So there's some hard and fast numbers there for activating Google seller ratings on your ads to either spend 17% less and get the same results, or keep the spend the same and increase your output by 17%. So
Wow, that's awesome.
mhm,
It kind of reminds me of that study you just said with Northwestern. That the study with Northwestern, I believe, was retail, but the
mhm,
psychology is still the same. When you see those reviews under a website, or an ad in Google seller ratings, it triggers something in your mind that's like, oh, this is a good company, or this is a good business.
exactly.
And yeah, I mean, that's such a great point. And so something that we've preached about in a lot of our webinars and all of our live streams, it's one of the first things I always tell people when it comes to managing your online reputation, especially when it comes to your reviews, and that's to respond to your reviews, both the positive and the negative ones. And with one location, this seems pretty straightforward. You have the one location, where all the reviews are what they're reviewing. But as businesses accumulate more locations, I at least imagine that the process can get complex, especially, we were just talking about how hard it is just to track all of it, and how to just keep an eye on everything, let alone actually going out and responding to all of them. And when that process gets complex, you begin to question, like, who is supposed to be responding to all of these? Is this me in corporate, or is this the person, the building manager, or the location manager? Like, who's supposed to be doing this? What's the process? And so not only does the data get harder to manage, but the process does too. And so how would you approach managing and responding to reviews if you're dealing with multiple business locations?
Oh, it's a great question. You hit on a really key part in asking the question. I think communication, internal communication, is really, really important. Um, the last thing you want to do is let some of those slip through the cracks and not have anyone respond. If
Mhm.
corporate thinks local's taking care of it, and the local branch thinks corporate's taking care of it, and no one does, that's probably worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really important to have a clear process in place and clear ownership. Most of the customers that we work with and I talk to have someone at the corporate level that's responsible for managing all of those responses. It often comes back to brand tone and ensuring that there's consistency. There's also an efficiency that comes with having one person manage it because they may
Mhm.
have templates or auto responses or best practices, things that they've tried in the past that they know work.
Mhm.
Um, there's also the reality that someone at the location level may also have 7 or 8 other things on their plate at that very moment, including serving a customer that is right there in front of them in the store. So what we often see is that if it's a negative review, for example, the person or team that's responsible at corporate will reach out to the location to get more facts about the situation.
Mhm.
Tell me what happened so that we can, potentially tell our side of the story in a respectful way. And then they will go and manage the response on behalf of the location. Some best practices for that to do it effectively. Number one, respond quickly. It shows that you care, that you're listening, that you're paying attention. Um, as tempting as it may be to set the record straight with all of the facts and your side of the story, it's important to do that in a way that's not combative,
Mhm.
or, the tone really matters here. And so, there's a balance. It's it's important to say like, yes, we tried our best and we're sorry about this misunderstanding, but yes, be polite, don't be combative.
Mhm.
Um, be sincere, and as personal as you can, and again, just be consistent. And with that, automation and some tools can really help ensure that you get the basic structure right, and then can personalize that without sounding too generic.
Mhm. And I think that's crucial because it's not like the only person reading your response is the person who left the review. Your other potential customers, other people determining whether or not they want to work with your business are reading that. And so, something I've always said is the only way to really guarantee that a negative review can hurt your business is by not responding to it and just leaving that negative comment out there in the air alone, just just being read by everyone else that's coming across your business.
Yeah.
Um, and having that consistency is also important, as well, because you never really know what could happen in a situation when someone receives a negative review. It could be an emotional thing, someone could respond emotionally. So having a process in where you can ensure that you have a consistent voice from response to response, request to request, is really important because you know it's not just you and that one person reading it, it's everyone. And so you have to stay cognizant of that whenever you're responding is, okay, what are other people going to think? Or what's like, how do we come out of this if someone else is reading this, like a third party is reading this?
Exactly, exactly. And I know that responding to negative reviews can feel scary.
Hmm.
It's like there's this natural inclination we have to either defend ourselves or to just avoid it.
Hmm.
And as you said, that's not an option. So I think the templates here become really helpful because it's can be really challenging to write something from scratch. Sitting down in front of a blank reply box or a blank sheet of paper can be really hard. But if there's a template there that has a standard response that you can edit to make more personal, it makes the process significantly easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is not even this is somewhat in the same realm, but at a previous job, I ran social media, and it was impossible to try to come up with social captions for 3 or 4 posts a day every day. And I mean, I just daydreamed about the day one like that AI would get advanced enough to start writing captions for me so I can at least have something to get started with. And so having those kind of templates, especially because there's so many different situations that
Mhm.
the review could be about, different, experiences and things like that. And the more personal that you make it, especially when you're responding to the positive ones, really carry an impact. And it also in the mind of the person leaving the review, if they see that you responded personally and that you truly genuinely care that they chose you as the business that they want to work with, that's going to build loyalty. And so it helps with customer retention, and also the other people looking at those reviews like, oh wow, look how good that business is responding. They really seem to care. They're listening, they're paying attention. That actually sheds a better light on you. And that could even happen with a negative review response. It's like, oh wow, they actually really like that. This person clearly had a bad experience, but they did the things necessary to make it right. Like, even though they had a negative experience, I still would want to work with them because I know that they would take care of me if I did. And
Exactly.
so all of that, you just have to think about that stuff. And, once you kind of get to that point and then you can start automating it and it just kind of runs itself, that's how you're making strides in your online reputation.
100% agree.
Let's see what we got here. I think I've got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're nearing the end. But also, I want to make sure that to remind everybody here to register for Tuesday's webinar. It's going to be an awesome discussion. We're going to really dive in deep on how to build and maintain a strong and winning online reputation. In our previous installment in part 2, that was Reputation Management 101. And that was a great conversation because it was a little bit more high level. We kind of defined what it meant to have a strong reputation. And then in this next installment, we're really going to dive into how you achieve that. So I highly recommend people tune in, and the recording will be available. So even if you can't watch it live on Tuesday, sign up, and then you can watch it on demand pretty much like 2 hours later, I think is how long it takes to process. So, even if you can't join it live, I definitely recommend. You're going to get plenty of value out of it. But I think right now, oh, you know what? Actually, I think we are nearing the end of our time. But you know what, Rebecca, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on. You also, for anyone else who hasn't tuned into our Reviews for Revenue Masterclass yet, Rebecca here was the host of an awesome panel for part 1, where she and I think it was like 4 other people, maybe 5 other experts. We had an SEO expert, we had digital marketing experts. There was a person who had over 16,000 reviews from their business as well, and they just shared their knowledge and their experiences of how they were able to kind of help turn their reviews into revenue, which is kind of the genesis of this series.
Absolutely. And George Gregorian was one of the panelists at that webinar, who's the
Yes.
speaker for this one that's coming up. He had a lot of really great insights. So
Yeah, he was so good. We needed to have him back.
yeah.
But awesome. Thank you so much. And again, everybody, register for the webinar, and we will see you next time. And also be sure to follow us here. If you're scrolling right by right now and you've never heard of Birdeye and you're watching me talk right now, go ahead and give us a follow. We've got plenty. We live stream all the time. We've got more coming up. I think the next one I'm going to be interviewing Ben Fisher and Steve Wiedemann, who are like the 2 smartest guys in the world of SEO that I know. I mean, Steve is an actual like professor in this stuff, and he's written a book about it. And Ben is I think he's like a certified platinum level Google expert. I don't even know. There's just a bunch of high ranking things that he is. It's awesome. And we're actually going to be doing a webinar with both of them in a couple of weeks. So be sure to tune in for that. It's going to be a great time, and we'll catch you all next time.
Great. Thank you, Justin.